Hello guys, I'll be talking about safe food cooking temperatures. Let's begin the presentation. So we'll be starting with the importance of safe cooking temperatures in food service industries. Understanding food safety temperatures is pivotal to providing safe food. It is more important for the food handlers and operators to recognize temperature danger zones and how it is closely related to food safety. Businesses should undertake training programs to keep their employees educated and aware of safe food temperatures. Danger zone. Danger zone refers to a range of temperature in which bacteria grows most rapidly on food. The temperature range between 41 and 135 degrees Fahrenheit is considered the danger zone. Though bacteria can grow in any temperature in between, temperatures between 70 and 125 are the most hospitable ones. More amount of time the food stays in the danger zone, greater will be the amount of bacteria growing in it. Once the bacteria reaches unhealthy levels, food begins to spoil. This is why danger zone is important. Next topic we'll be covering is time temperature abuse. Time temperature abuse is allowing the food to stay in the danger zone, that is 41 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Common ways time temperature abuse happens is not holding or storing food at safe temperature. Food is not cooked or reheated to correct internal temperatures. To eliminate pathogen is another example of time temperature abuse. It can also happen when hot food is not cooled properly before being placed in cold storage. TCS foods. TCS food stands for time temperature control safety. These are food that require to be stored or held at strict time and temperature. In order to prevent spoilage of TCS food, they have to be prevented entering the danger zone and being time temperature abused. Some examples of TCS food include milk, dairy products, meat, poultry, fish, shellfish, sprouts, cooked rice, beans, and sprouts. How long can the food stay in danger zone? 4 hours is the maximum number of hours the food can be in the danger zone. It is advised to throw away the food after 4 hours. Within the 4-hour limit, the food can be consumed, reheated, or chilled to bring them back to the food safe temperature. The best possible way to take corrective action before throwing away the food would be to check its temperature. How to keep food out of danger zone. So kitchen thermometers are handy in the kitchen to keep food out of the danger zone. It is a good practice to monitor and record food temperatures regularly. Some tips include using the right thermometer for the job, never rely on thermometer built into the equipment, place the thermometer in the freezer and fridge as an additional safety measure. Also clean and calibrate thermometers often. Food holding temperature. So food can either be heated up to internal temperature of 135 Fahrenheit or chilled to 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below and be held at those temperatures. There might be instances where the temperature must be held for longer periods of time. It is recommended to check the temperature of food every 4 hours, but checking the temperature every 2 hours will give an individual enough time to take corrective measures. Safe cooking temperatures for various foods. So internal temperature needs to be monitored to prevent spread of Salmonella, Staphylococcus aureus, Listeria and other pathogens. Safe food temperatures of common TCS are given below. For poultry, stuffed pasta, seafood and any dish that contains fish or TCS needs to be cooked for 165 degrees Fahrenheit or at least 15 seconds. For ground beef, pork and flavor injected meat, tenderized meat or ground seafood, it's advised to cook to 155 Fahrenheit for at least 15 seconds. For seafood, steak, chops, eggs from shell, roasts of beef, it's advised to cook to 145 Fahrenheit degrees for at least 15 seconds. Fruits, vegetables, rice, pasta and legumes cook up to 135 Fahrenheit degrees with no set time limits. How do you rapidly cool hot food? So many institutions and commercial kitchens prepare food ahead of time of service. In order to arrest spoilage, the food is cooled down and held at low temperatures until service. It is advised to bring down the internal temperatures to 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below within 2 hours of heating it up to the recommended internal temperature. Tips for cooling hot foods to save food temperatures. It is advised to not directly cool the food by placing it in the refrigerator or freezer, since that would increase the temperature inside the fridge or freezer. As a result, this could possibly increase the temperature of the food placed in the fridge, causing it to enter the temperature danger zone. Other tips are using commercial blast chiller, food stored in shallow vessels also cool faster. Cooling paddles also effective tools to cool hot liquids like soups, stews, and sauces. Avoid refreezing thaw food. So bacteria can still grow in food that are being thawed, so it's better to not thaw it in the danger zone. Best way to defrost would be to keep the food in the fridge until the time it has to be cooked. General rule is to avoid refreezing thawed food since it could contain high levels of pathogenic bacteria. The risk highly is dependent on the condition of the food when frozen and how it's handled during the time of thawing and refreezing. So how do you store raw food separately from cooked food, or why is it advised to store raw food separately to cooked food? So when storing cooked food in the fridge, it's better to make sure that the raw food is stored separate from the cooked. Bacteria can be transferred from the raw food to cooked cold food and then can cause diseases if not cooked thoroughly again. It is best to store raw food in sealed containers below the cooked food since meat juices can drip down onto cooked food and contaminate it. This is another advice that we would give out, that is, if in doubt, throw it out. So if high risk foods are left in the temperature danger zone for more than 4 hours, discard it. Make sure to look for use by date labels and throw out food that are past the expiry dates. If you're not certain of the use by date, it's advised to throw it out anyway. Food safety with raw eggs. So extra precautions should be taken while preparing foods that contain raw eggs, such as hollandaise sauce, desserts, and mayonnaise. Bacteria inside egg shells and egg can contaminate food and cause food poisoning. It's advisable to avoid giving food containing raw eggs to pregnant women, young children, elderly people, and anyone who is immunocompromised. Food safety and microwave cooking. So microwave is a convenient form of cooking, but if not used properly, can cause food poisoning. It can cause uneven cooking and maybe leave the food uncooked or partially cooked. So some tips to avoid these are cutting food into even pieces, rotating and stirring food while cooking, or covering the food with a microwave-safe lid or plastic wrap. Other tips for safe preparation. So use separate clean utensils and cutting board for raw foods and ready-to-eat foods. Make sure to wash and sanitize them in between uses. Disposable gloves should be used while handling raw, cooked, and ready-to-eat food to avoid cross-contamination. You can also store food in clean food-grade storage containers that are strong enough to hold the food they contain. Food labels and tags can contain bacteria, so it's preferred to use it on the container, not the food. So all in all, this particular slide summarizes all the points that I've said. It's advised to cook food properly to at least 75 degrees centigrade or hotter using a thermometer to check the temperature of cooked food. If you're using a microwave, check the food is cooked evenly. Cooked foods made from eggs thoroughly. Cool and store cooked food as soon as possible. And reheat food until steaming hot. At the end of the presentation, I expect every single one of you to answer these questions. So the 3 questions would be, what is temperature danger zone? The second question would be, what is time temperature abuse? And the third question being, can thawed food be refrozen again? Here are my references, and that'll be it. Thank you for listening.